Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live workshop. And we're going to have we got a real treat for you. We've got Bill Wich, who is just a brilliant, wonderful, big, loving man who has come up with this wonderful, amazing, brilliant program on self-realization, who we are, enlightenment, whatever words you want to call it. Getting into the kingdom of heaven is what Jesus called it. I call it financial heart space. Whatever you want to call that higher self, that higher true self that's full of abundance and love and prosperity and the truth of who we are. This program that he's put together so beautifully is brilliant in its simplicity, really. Anybody at any level can get a partner and follow this 20-day step-by-step program, which goes into a higher level of advanced stages, but it starts with 20 days of working with a partner. So Bill's going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do, I want to just talk about a couple things. One, we over here at Financial Heart Space have decided, and this is why we're kicking this off, is that we're going to make our theme next year happiness. Because I believe that we can create more in the world when we're coming from a place of internal happiness and joy and prosperity. And certainly when I'm coming from a place of doom and gloom and scarcity. And to me, in my belief, what I know to be true is when I'm in my authentic self, when I'm in that higher place, when I'm in deep connection with Joy the Wise Woman, I'm happy. I'm living in joy. I'm living in abundance, and I'm able to welcome more abundance into my life. And that's the theme, is if we focus on self-realization, we focus on ourselves, we focus on, we say in the marketing world, we do business we love, know, and trust. Well, how much time do you spend getting to know, love, and trust yourself? Really spend time getting to love yourself. And that's exactly what this program does. It not only allows you to love yourself, but it allows you to work with a partner and get to love that person too, and let them love you. Because that's really what it's all about. It's about human connection. So I'm really excited today to have Bill Wich here to talk to us about this amazing program that he's put together that anybody can do. And we're doing this over in the LGBTQ asylum seekers in a refugee camp right now, because I'm feeling if we can get them to move into the truth of who they are, they can create abundance and prosperity in that horrible environment they're living in. We can move a mountain. So Bill, thank you so much today for coming on and being our guest presenter, and sharing with us your wisdom, your knowledge in this amazing program. I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to, much as I love to talk, I'm going to be quiet for a little while.
Thank you, Martin. So, yeah, I like your theme of happiness. And one of the things that I'm aware of is there's all these different views on happiness, and a couple of things that come up around that theme for me. One of them is I often see spiritual sayings or speakers being quoted as saying happiness doesn't come from something external. It comes from going inside. And going inside means a lot of different things to different people. To some people, it means meditating. To some people, it means doing some of the work like we do in the OPP, where you actually go in an altered state and create a world inside. And that's what one of the, I think my primary purpose for setting up the OPP was to give somebody the tools to go inside. Because all these quotes and everything, they never tell you how to get inside, other than implying meditation is the way to do it. And I've never been good at meditation. I've never understood it. And so what worked for me was doing some processes through hypnotherapy. And I became a hypnotherapy instructor. And with that, there's step-by-step processes I can follow to go inside and to go into my inner world, set up an inner world that I can relate to. And I can also talk directly to my parts. I can talk directly to my spirit guides. I can talk directly to my higher self. And so I would say over the last 30 years in the work I've done, what I've wanted to do was to create a path for people to connect with their higher self and connect with their parts in a loving way. And what I found when people get a chance to do that, and they get a chance to do that with this OPP program, that they get to experience a lot of things that you were mentioning, Martin. That they get inner peace, they get to love themselves, and then they find out that their parts, a lot of them they may have been afraid of, are actually there for their own benefit, and that those parts love them and they can love them back. And so I would say, if there was one, there's a number of feedbacks we get consistently. One of them is I learned to love myself. And I learned to feel safer because I was safer with my parts. I was scared of some of my parts. And now they're family. Now they're my allies. And so that experience of being with parts, connecting with my higher self, was something I got to experience 30 years ago. And ever since then, I've been trying to find a way to help other people connect to. And we did the Next Step training. We created that, which was a weekend training to help people meet their inner world, to go into their inner world, to start a dialogue, to start a practice of going to their inner world. And when COVID hit, I found out that we couldn't do our trainings anymore. And so I wanted some way of sharing the Next Step technology and the technology to go into an inner world. And so I had once experienced a daily program with somebody where I paired up with somebody, and every day they took me through a process. And it was for about 20 days or so. And that was real beneficial. And I realized it was the same process every day. And I said, wow, if I could take the Next Step technology and use incremental steps to teach the Next Step technology every day and have a different process every day, it would be more powerful. And so that's what this Omega Point program is a daily program between two people, and then Phase Zero, which you're referring to, Martin, is two people on equal footing. One day, one person mentors the other, and then the other day they switch roles, and then that person, mentors the person that mentored them the day before. And then they go to the next step, and the next day, and the next day. And the feedback has been, just like you said, people fall in love with each other. They literally connect at a level that's deeper than, I would say, our cultural skills allow us to connect. So this goes below those cultural skills to another way of connecting, another way of being with each other. And it's been real powerful. And so the feedback was so powerful from when we started doing this OPP, the Phase 1 and Phase 2, that I created Phase 0 for people that weren't as experienced in facilitation. And the feedback from that has been real positive. So the whole program is free. It's on the website, omegapointprogram.com. And I want everybody to experience it.
Well, I just want to pop in here and say really quickly I'm working with Abba, who is my partner over in the LGBTQ camps in Kenya. He's one of the leaders in the camp, and he lives there. And we're now on about day 9. And it's just, he and I mean, we just kind of met each other by divine intervention. Then I went to Africa. So there was already kind of a deep, sort of a mystical love relationship here between two people that just like living the same mission to create love, abundance, and prosperity for everybody, including people living in a refugee camp, for God's sakes. And so as I've come back and we've been going through this program together, we've just gotten even deeper and just fallen in love even at a deeper level for each other, and for an appreciation for what we're doing. And it is truly real. I mean, it is. I look forward to those times when we get together and share what's in, and we just follow right along the book, like you tell. We just follow the script, what it says to do. We just do exactly what it says, and we're getting amazing results. So I just wanted to say, give you some live feedback from someone doing it right this moment, and that's why you're here, because I'm just thrilled to death with it. So thank you.
Well, no, thank you, Martin. That's great to hear. As some of the other feedback, similar to what you're saying, Martin, was that it carried over into their personal life too. People with were learning how to listen to their spouses and their kids and families better than they had before. Are you noticing that, where you naturally have integrated some of the listening skills as you've been doing it? You're on mute, Martin.
Yes, I have. I mean, certainly, my husband and I are not going through the program together, but I'm a better listener. I have a lot more patience right now, because when I know he's dealing with diabetes and his own issues and stuff, and he's got his own world, and he's not even remotely interested in any kind of transformational work that, like, I just love, you and I dance in. Mm-hmm. But it's not his responsibility. That's not his thing. But I can tell you that I'm a much more loving, compassionate, empathetic partner. And I listen a little more deeply now because I'm just cultivating those skills.
Yeah, so it's one of the things I like about it, because it's every day and because I'm doing it and reading it. It doesn't feel like I'm studying something or I have to learn something. I'm just using it. And then over time, the feedback I've gotten from people is they simply integrate the skills, and they find that they're different now with their family and their friends and stuff. And so you're doing phase zero, which doesn't get into the deep inner work or parts work. It's more of the processes about looking at your life, looking at the issues, and then going through your issues. And how's that been for you as far as helping you with the issues that you're facing right now?
It's been huge. I mean, and we're facing some big issues. I mean, the fact that, my friend Abba this is the kind of thing that he has to do as a leader over there. Somebody went to the hospital. I'm gonna give you a little example of something. Somebody went to the hospital and they told him just to charge it to Abba. Well, the hospital wanted to get paid. Abba didn't have the money. So the police came and put him in jail, took his phone. So they came up with the money. So, well, that made him, so that just completely put him in, and so he just reached out and needed a little money, so which I was happy to provide to him, because I didn't want him to spend the night in jail, and it wasn't that much money. And I thought that was kind of ridiculous, and I can certainly take care of that. But that's not a normal thing. He doesn't typically reach out to me for money, because that's not what I'm there for. Mm-hmm. But in this case, he was an urgent matter. But what I want to get to that is, once we resolved that, got him out of jail, then he was having to deal with the emotional trauma of what he'd been through. Mm. So I was able to sit with him and have a conversation with him and listen from a place of care and partnership to what he was experiencing from this. And it created a deeper love and a deeper bond between the two of us.
Well, that's cool to hear. My experience when I'm with somebody who's like upset, and normally I would say, okay, this isn't my place. They're upset, and I want to just be quiet. And it takes me a little while to realize, oh, wait a minute, I have some skills that I can be with them in a good way. Mm-hmm. And so normally I just start with active listening, and I can do active listening, for an hour, and just use the 3 steps of active listening that we teach in the OPP. And it makes it so simple. And I don't have to keep going around in my head, like, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say to this person? And all I realize is I need to just keep doing active listening, which is mostly echoing what they're saying. And to me, there's so much magic in that by keeping it simple, rather than having all these complicated questions or approaches to helping somebody. I simply listen. I mean, most grandmas are better at listening than most therapists, in my experience.
I agree. I discovered listening skills, as you may or may not know. I was an early responder to 9/11. I spent 9 months at Ground Zero. I was in charge of the food operation there.
Wow.
And while I was there in charge of making sure people ate and fed, we were basically out there as a respite center, as a place to get out of the fray for people who were across the street, basically digging out body parts. And the firemen particularly were going around with little hand tools to go out and find, they moved the big pieces of equipment. They went in with garden tools and looked for fingers and hands, whatever they could find to identify somebody. Well, that was pretty hard work, my friend, particularly for firemen who would find their firemen pretty much intact because of their clothes. So I found myself more than anything else, just sitting and listening to people tell about their experience across the street. And I didn't do anything but just listen. I just listened. And there was so much healing and so much going on in the fact that somebody was actively listening to them from a place of care to allow them to process the trauma that they were experiencing in real time across the street.
No. Yeah.
So active listening is vital to right now to healing the planet. That's why I think this is so important, because we're in a movement to heal this planet from all this pain and suffering of living in this old paradigm that's just not even true, that we're not good enough, we're not worthy enough, we have to work our way to the top of the pile, all this nonsense we've been conditioned to believe. It's time for some love and some good listening and caring for each other in my mind.
Yeah. And what I like about the OPP is that it gives you the basic skills to do that listening, and then to follow emotion wherever it needs to go, or to follow an issue where it needs to go. And it's very organic, and yet it's very systematized. It's very, step by step. When I did the OPP, I took like 4 people through it before I experienced it myself. And I treasure that time. It was last year, like towards the end of the year. And I had 40 days. I did the phase 1 and phase 2. And the word that really comes up the most for me to describe it was enchanting. I got to live in my inner world for like 40 minutes a day. And it was this wonderful place where all these mythical characters kind of come out of the woodwork, and they're my parts, or they're my archetypes or guides. And they're all saying wonderful things to me. They're giving me great advice. And it's like going into another universe, and it's my universe.
Exactly. What I love that, because what I was discovering when I go inside myself, and I do it through all out to meditation as well, but I do it through this also. But when I go and carve out time to spend time with myself, to love myself, spend time with the divine, and get to know all those parts, like you say, my inner world is wildly exciting. My ego wants to tell you it's boring and sit here and watch this piece of grass grow. But but when I wake up that inner landscape, my world on the inside becomes exciting and enchanting. I love that word. And I'm happy on the inside. That's the thing. I have found my happiness in there. That's what I'm trying to talk about. Yeah. And so if we're creating an enchanting world on the inside, then we're going to create an enchanting world out there to live in. Yes, that's how manifestation works. We create the world in which we come from. Yeah. And if we come from a world of scarcity and lack and not enough and all those negative feelings, those lies, that's the kind of world we're going to end up creating for ourselves out there. But if we're coming from a place of enchantment and love and truth, and all these amazing parts of ourselves that come alive when we get in touch with them, that becomes the world we create in the external. And just imagine an entire world right now of happy people who love themselves.
Yeah.
That's the movement, guys. That's what we're trying to get you and join us on. Join a movement of happiness, getting to know and love yourself so that you can live a life of happiness and joy, and everybody else do, and spread the word.
and I would say maybe the greatest happiness people feel in their bodies from this is, without having to take some kind of long training to become a facilitator or a healer or hypnotherapist. They do this program, they read the script, and they're helping somebody. And they get that, I don't know what chemical it is, whether it's adrenaline or one of the other ones, but they get this high from helping somebody.
Yeah, I think it's called oxytocin. I think something like that. They call it oxytocin. Yeah. And it comes from a feminine energy, by the way. It comes from that real deep, which I think that as a coach in the queer community, I think gay men particularly have a unique relationship with our divine feminine and those feminine energies. And that's why I think it's so important that we lead this movement along with women and other people who might be part of that too. So one of those is that release of pleasure, that release of of that chemical in our bodies that feels good, that makes us feel pleasure, makes us feel fulfilled. I know that when I was in, the most fulfilling thing I've ever had was working at ground. You think working it across from that pile, but it was the most fulfilling and in a deep, joyful way of being every day, to be able to provide that kind of love and support to people who were in pain, really, from digging out body parts.
Yeah. And when you speak to that, it reminds me of going into Folsom. I mean,
Yeah.
Folsom was max security. It was a level 4. There's only like 1 or 2 prisons that are higher than that level 5, where everybody's in solitary. So for level 4, it's about as dangerous as you can get. And almost everybody that we worked with was in there for life, and they had many of them committed murder, and they're very dangerous. And so the whole time I've been in there, and I was working in Folsom for over 20 years, I got to sit with these men, and I had to watch every word I said, because, I don't want to trigger anybody, because they can get triggered very quickly. That's how they defend themselves. That's how they keep safe. And yet, when they would open up, when they would trust me and us enough to open up, it was one of the most wonderful experiences I've ever had in my life. And what's funny is, I realized after a while that when they would open up and take their armor off, they were some of the most loving men I've ever experienced.
Yes.
All they wanted to do was trust somebody enough to love them, to be able to love them. And the other thing is, they inherently knew what they would put up with, where their boundaries were, and what they wouldn't. So when we initially came into Folsom, we had a group of guys that had been doing trainings in men's work for 10 years, 10, 15 years. And we had a whole thing with theater and all kinds of stuff that we did. And we didn't know what the work was. And so we brought the whole package into Folsom, and they took it one more. This is bullshit. This is bullshit. We ain't doing that. We ain't doing that. Okay, let's do that. And what it was sitting in circle, listening to each other and sharing. All the other stuff, all the processes, how do I know I'm a man? Anything else got thrown out because it was bullshit as far as deep healing work. And they taught us what deep healing work was, just to be with them. And on this program, it's taken all the essential stuff that survived that Folsom experience and putting it, in a script so that people can share deep healing with each other. And the techniques are different. I've helped develop them over 30 years. And from our experience in the Next Step training, the Mystic Warrior training, we got feedback for 20, 30 years on what works for people, what doesn't. And so the OPP is everything that survived, basically. This works, this has an effect. It helps somebody. So
that's wonderful. So now that you've got us all curious, at least our audience here, and I want to make up. I know that we do these every Wednesday at 1:00 every week inside our Facebook group, Financial Heart Space for Gay, Transgender, and Bisexual Men. And if you've not joined our group, and you're part of that tribe, I highly recommend that you join us over there, because we do live workshops in there every day at 1:00, every Wednesday at 1:00, and this is just one of them. We also invite others to come in, because you're here by Zoom as a guest. Glad to have you here. But what I'd love to know now is, can you take us through a little bit of how do we get started? What if somebody wants to do this and they're watching either this live or they're watching the replay? I'll give you access to share the screen, and why don't you show the world take us through the steps of where they get it, how they find it, how they get started, and let's just hear it from you how people can get this thing moving.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and share the screen, and I'll just share the website that you can go to and what you can pull up on the website and have it all set. So
take your time.
Yep. Okay.
I see it on the screen.
Okay. So this is the website, and if you look at the top, you can see omegapointprogram.com. And so that it's real simple. The reason I call it the Omega Point program, is my mom was a big fan of Teilhard de Chardin. When I finally started reading him, I couldn't believe how hard he was to read and how smart my mom must have been to be able to read him. So, and Teilhard de Chardin, most people would know him from his quote, "We aren't humans having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience." And that's Teilhard's quote. And, and he said that there would be an omega point where we all come together psychically, essentially, where we all are one and we realize our oneness, and we all come back together into, basically union with the divine, would be another way of putting it. So to me, with all the separation that's going on right now, Omega Point to me says, okay, let's start the turnaround. Let's start coming back together again. Let's find a way to come together. So this essence of the Omega Point program is, how do we come together internally, each one of us as individuals, and then use that same approach to come together as a community. So that's the omegapointprogram.com. And when you come up on it, there's some feedback here and then some quick links. And all you have to do is go to the file downloads, which is the first thing that comes up. And you can download, here's OPP Phase Zero, and you can download that. And what that does is it comes up with a document, Phase Zero, and it explains it a little bit, and it gives some instructions. It gives an outline on the 20 days, and then I'll show you, most days have a daily reading. So you read about active listening. You read about I statements and feelings, what to avoid in active listening, a number of, 1, 2, 3 page readings to give some instructions on how to do this. And then every day there's a daily reading, and that's like 2 pages here, or 3 pages. And then there's the mentor session guide. So day 1 would be your first day, and the intention to confirm agreements, to introduce ourselves to each other, and to practice listening in silence. So we're building up to active listening with just one element, just listening in silence. And then you just follow through, read each paragraph, and it's basically a script. So if right here on the agreements, if I was mentor A, I'd say, also in the reading was a set of instructions that we can use to conduct the program. We can agree on our approach today. So I'll read each item and we can decide how to proceed. And so you never have to go through and figure anything out. You can just kind of blindly read through this thing, and everything just falls out. And then we go into a self-introduction where we just listen to the other person for 8 minutes, and they can talk about anything they want to about themselves. So that's the first day, and that kind of is a setup for the 20 days. And then let me just show down later where there's a process. So like on day 8, we practice active listening, and each person shares their emotional history. And so it gives a topic, and then they get to share, and the other person just listens. And then the next day, we get into regression. And regression is a step-by-step process to take you back to some childhood trauma that is causing possibly some of your emotional troubles today. And so it's simply a process you can read through. And then when you get to the script, it's even simpler. It's you start, and I'll read a few lines. Is there a current or chronic issue that tends to trigger strong emotions in you? Something that brings up feelings of sadness or anger for you? So the person answers, and then they describe the data, or I says, please describe the data or facts around the issue, and the person answers. And what are the judgments you have around this data? And the person answers. And then you say, thank you. I invite you now to close your eyes, take a deep breath. And what feeling is coming up for you around this issue and these judgments? describe the feeling as best you can. So then the person answers and describes it. And then the person who's mentoring for that day says, where in your body do you feel this? And so on and so forth. So this gives you just a feel for how simple it is every day. It's simply a matter of reading each one and then going to the next day, and then it just continues. So, and Martin, maybe you want to comment on how that has been for following these and what you've learned from the daily readings.
Yeah, it's like, it's almost like I get it. Like I love the word you use around enchantment. It's like exciting to think, oh, good, I can't wait to get on the phone with Abba, who's in Kenya, and hear what is going on in his life over there. And it doesn't matter what's going on, because it's what matters to him. And I just want to listen and be able to basically love and support him because he's my friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know from my experience, and we just followed. The only little confusion we had was in the beginning was about mentor A, and we weren't sure how that worked. And what I've realized, and make sure I'm right, is that you decide ahead of time who is going to be A or B. And then every day you just follow the instructions. It tells you sometimes A's leading it, sometimes B's leading it, sometimes. So you just follow that through. That was the only, and once we kind of got that figured out, everything else has been pretty straightforward. Just like you say, just read the script. Don't try to ad lib. Don't try to add anything to it, make it any more complicated than it is. The beauty of this is its simplicity. It is so simple. It's really, it's like people struggle so much, and we all have, I mean, I've certainly done it. We all struggle so much in trying to live up to a standard that's not ourselves. We look at people out there who we think are successful or happy and got all the things, and we try to be them. And we're not. We're never going to be them, because that's not who we are. And even if we got what they have, we're not going to be happy because we're not living our lives authentically as ourselves, which is life is an experience. It's just an experience. And we try to make it a bundle of thoughts in the past, but really it's just an experience. And if we can let go of all those thoughts and opinions by going through a process where we can actually process them by sharing them and telling each other, we can get into, and I call what Eckhart Tolle calls the moment, getting into the now, getting into this moment, which is all there really is, so we can be present to that. And then we can manifest a world from this place of truth and abundance and prosperity. So in 8 days, I mean, I have an advantage because I've been doing this work for like you. I mean, you and I've been actually been in, I didn't go to the Folsom prison with you, but I went into a prison in, I think, Boston somewhere. So, I mean, I know the work, but what I want to say is important about that, I'm growing in it. It's just like it captures you where you are in your journey. And so it's not like I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I'm so much smarter than Abba because this is brand new to him. We are on the same page. We are sitting in the exact same space, learning to get to know each other and love and care for one another. And that's it. That's it. It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've found that, I mean, I've learned 100 techniques for healing and approaches to, working with somebody. And I found that when I'm doing this program, I'm the most effective by sticking to the script and not trying to go off of it or try some trick that I know or whatever. I'm finding that for my own purposes, I'm the most effective when I just stay to the script.
Exactly. Absolutely. It's when I always talk about this. The ego is not intelligent, the shadow ego, but it is very, very clever. And for me as a spiritual teacher and coach, it's amazing to me how it can sneak in and pretend to say the things that it's learned from me over the years. Mm-hmm. So I need someone on the other side of the conversation to help me hear that and mirror back the truth. Because I go into shadow too, and I say the bigger the heart, the more we grow. Sometimes the cleverer and our shadow gets. Mm-hmm. And it can be very sneaky sometimes. And I need someone else to show me where I'm in shadow and how that imposter has come in and sort of tricked me into thinking that it's talking when actually Joy's talking when it's not. It's just me trying to get my way.
Yeah, and one thing that I feel is real important about the program is the program teaches an attitude towards every part, whether you want to call it shadow or golden part, whatever you want to say, that every part is a part of me and it's a valued part. And if it's a part of me, it has a positive intent. And so even, the shadow that you're talking about, even the ego, which is probably the part of me that just controls everything and wants to run everything. Even those parts, when I listen to them in a good way, I find out what's behind all of the things that they've been doing, which may be fucking me up. But when I listen to them, what they're trying to do is help me.
Yeah.
And then I can take them through one of these processes and they can find a better way to help me rather than the way they learned when they were 2 years old and they learned it from my abusive father.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Because I know for sure, I love when you say what's behind that and its protection. What I always find behind the shadow is someone that cares.
Yeah.
A heart that cares. And I don't care how obnoxious someone is or how bad their behavior is and how much I want to just stick and strangle them because they're so caught up in their own narcissistic mull. But I know deep inside that person is someone that cares.
Mm-hmm.
And he's lost, and he's afraid, and he's alone, or she's lost, afraid, and alone. And I think probably one of the biggest things I did probably during the pandemic was somebody took me through a process where I forgave the president of the United States, Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another part of a little different process, but active listening to find out really what is the value of this guy on the planet who's making my life so miserable. And when I got through the process and was able to reframe it all, I realized I came into a place of being grateful for what he's bringing to the world to show us all the darkness and some of the things that are underneath everything. It's not my job to fix him or try to get him in. Like, that's his business. What I need to be concerned with is what is the impact on me and on the world that we can all benefit and value from. And that's what I got from that, is that there's a value to that is one to move us into a higher level of consciousness on a collective basis, is what I believe to be true. And this particular program that you've come up with is a way for us to actually, a how-to guide. Now that many of us have woken up during the pandemic to the realization there is something bigger going on than what I used to think was important. What do I now do? Who am I? What am I here to do? What's my purpose in the world? And this program is a very specific guide to help people figure that out.
And it's funny, the way you framed that was because when COVID hit, and I was aware of some of the conspiracy theories, what's going to happen, and somebody's going to come in and rescue us all, and all these different things, and so I, in a meditative state, I simply asked, what can I do? What is my part in this?
Yeah.
And that's when a lot of these ideas came through, is that here's something I can do. I don't have to wait for somebody on the outside to come and rescue all of us or fix everything. I can do this. I can share what I know so other people can. That's my favorite part of this, especially versus COVID, is other people can connect with each other in a way maybe they've never connected at a time when COVID is isolating us in a way we've never been so isolated. And so to me, this is like the first vaccine or the antidote to COVID was this OPP program, because it was a connection. And we were connecting in a way that maybe hasn't been possible before. And we get to do it simply because of COVID gives us some time, maybe some freedom to do that.
Yeah, and with this current technology of Zoom, like we're on now, we actually can connect with anybody on the planet.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm doing this live today on Zoom, because I want to share the message.
Yeah.
And I know people are preoccupied with all their needs to get things done, whatever those things are. But what I'm going to suggest is if you let go of all those things you think you need to get done and take care of one priority, and that's to love yourself and love your neighbor as you God, love your God with all your heart, and love your neighbor as yourself. And one way you can do that is to sit down and have a nice conversation and listen to them and get to know them and care about them.
Mhm.
That's what self-love is all about. That's what loving your God, loving yourself, and loving the world is all about. It's about sitting down and having a conversation from the heart, heart to heart, listening and understanding each other so that you can help them and you can help each other. Because life, we're not meant to go through life alone. And this is just brilliant to me.
Yeah, thank you. Some of the fun stuff is in phase 1 and 2, we get into parts. And I was surprised as hell that my kind of leader of the parts was this guy. I named him Archie, and he's this tall, thin, flaming, queen. And and normally, I'm not expressive like that. I played football, so I'm trying to be macho and stuff like that. So, and every time I try to like do anything out of that kind of role, I'm pathetic at it. My husband always says, "You're not very good at that. You shouldn't do that." But Archie was good at it, and he was this funny guy that ran everything. He was like the maitre d' of my whole inside world. Anybody that was visiting, he'd be the first one to greet him. And I just loved having that energy inside. And then when I did my archetypes, I've always been saying a fan of Hercules doesn't quite put it in the right words. I've been obsessed with Hercules. And so he's my warrior, so Hercules is there. And I'll never forget the first time I met him and talked to him. And I don't know if he asked or I asked, "Can I give you a hug?" And so he gave me a hug, and this was like as real as if he was right there. And then he kissed me on the lips, during the hug. And I can almost replay that in my mind, every day. It was like something maybe my whole life I wanted. I wanted a big guy like that just to hold me. And he did. And he loved me in a way that I wanted to be loved. And there's other experiences like that, just these incredibly wonderful experiences with my inner parts, my inner archetypes, the whole thing. So yeah, I want everybody to have that experience. It's like opening up a doorway to another dimension, a dimension that we don't talk about in our culture, a dimension we don't know how to get to in our culture. And this doesn't just say go inside, it takes you on a guided tour,
Yeah, here's a guided tour and go inside, and also really go inside if this is real, because it's the most real thing going on.
Yeah.
Everything going on out there, it ain't real until it starts in here first.
Yeah. I had one experience where after I took 3 guys through it, I was thinking, man, this would be cool if somebody was a therapist, that they could actually charge for this and take people through it. And about that time, a guy that I had met in Folsom that was wealthy had got a situation, and he wanted to know if I would be his therapist. And I said, I don't do one-on-one therapy. I never have. But I would take him through the program because I was curious how that would work. And so here's a guy that hasn't done much work at all. And when he went in his inner world, there were like 2 parts that just blew me away. One was his magician, and there was a part where he became his magician. And I said, okay, now just see through your magician's eyes, see the world. He came out of that, and I was blown away. He said, the whole world looked different. I saw patterns, I saw images, I saw geometry. It was like he had become a mystic in that moment, and he was seeing patterns in the energy fields around him, and this was like totally new to him. And then there's another time where he was struggling with his son. His son had a major issue, and he'd been struggling over 6 months to a year with it. And so we sat down with his king, and he asked his king, what can I do? What's going on? and his king talked for like 15, 20 minutes, and it was the most profound wisdom I've ever heard in relative to like a relationship and stuff. He pinpointed everything that's going on, what the dad was doing right and what he was doing wrong. And he says, and you need to do this and this, and you're going to be fine, you know. But it was like having the smartest person in the world in your inner world and having access to them. You're on mute, Mark.
And that's exactly what we got, Bill. We got something much smarter than the smartest person in the world. We have infinite intelligence plugged in here. We've got the same creative genius that created everything in the universe right in here, accessible. That's pretty wild. Before we're about to run out of space here, and I see we've got Basil here, who's a regular attendee of these things, and I see Steve is around somewhere. I don't see his picture anymore, but I want to invite both Steve and Basil to take themselves off mute. And if you got a question, please ask your question. We'd love to hear and make this a little bit more interactive if we can. Basil, you've always got something interesting to say. Steve, you got something you want to add or quit?
I'm Steve. I'm looking. So you don't actually, there's no structure that you just find a mentee or mentor and do this, right?
That's it.
So anyone can do it at any time, anywhere.
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome. So, okay, so I just need to find someone. I wanted to say that the work, I would like to find a better word than the work for the process of coming into awareness and growth. I would say that for me, my growth is a practice, and I've been totally focused on my health issues and not doing growth. And of course, there's this pandemic, which kind of in the way. But yeah, that's I'm back. I'm ready to start practicing again. So
good.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you.
No, thanks for mentioning that, because to me, a lot of guys have made this their spirit, men and women have made this their spiritual practice. It's like if they have a full day, they think it's full right now, they basically wake up a half hour earlier and do this with a partner. And it's just on the phone, half hour a day. And it becomes a spiritual practice. It's like the feedback is that after doing this, they feel ready for the day. They feel clear-minded. They've centered themselves because they've gone deeper, into an altered state. They feel more peaceful, and they're ready to live their day because it's like a spiritual practice. And many people continue it afterwards on their own. They learn to access that inner world on their own without a mentor, and then they go there every morning before they get going on their life, for the day.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah. Basil, you're mighty quiet today. You got something you want to plug in here while you're deciding? I want to go to a little commercial here to let people know how they can find me. As you know, I'm a spiritual teacher and a prosperity mindset coach working with gay, bi, and transgender business leaders, really to help them have a life of happiness, and joy, and prosperity like that, and learn to love themselves and learn all about the stuff we got today. And I want to just point you to a Facebook group we have. It's called Financial Heart Space for Gay, Transgender, and Bisexual Men. It's a Facebook group. If you're part of that community, please join us over there and learn. This is where we do this. We do all sorts of great things. We're really a community of listening and loving and supporting each other to live lives of significance and meaning in the world, and get out of our own ways to living small, teeny lives, because we're powerful people. We queer people, men are quite powerful people. And we have a unique relationship with the divine feminine that puts us in a very unique relationship in this time of history to move this planet forward with products just like this and programs like this in order to get to the truth of who we are and how powerful we are so that we can make a difference in the world. And that's important. That's my North Star as I live to create a world of abundance and prosperity by showing up with love and gratitude. That's what I live to every day. That's my North Star. If you don't have one yet, come join us. We'll teach you how to get one. And the other part of me is that I'm guided by this divine intuition. I call her Joy, the wise woman. You will get to know that part. That's our true. That's what Bill's talking about. That's our higher purpose. That's our higher self. So when we get a North Star and we have a mission, a purpose in the world, guided by this divine part of ourselves, there's nothing we can't do. And that's what they're talking about. So that's you. Please join us at Financial Heart Space for gay, transgender, and bisexual men. And you guys join us, help us move this mountain for 2022 and move the whole world to living in joy and happiness and prosperity, if you will. So with that, I don't see Basil popping in here. Maybe he's over in, I think he's in Dubai. There you are. Yeah, come in here and ask us a question.
No, actually, it's a little, maybe I think I'm still digesting whatever has been talked about. It's been really interesting, and thank you for this. I think the main takeaway for me is maybe I don't have the right relationship with my divine feminine higher self. It's rather, I think I want to explore more about it, because I think I'm rather using it against myself, This,
yeah. A lot of gay men, because we were taught something was wrong with us, that natural inclination to those feminine characteristics, we kind of are afraid of, because if we exert those publicly in some ways, we actually show we care, we actually show compassion and things like that for people, we've been hurt. So it wouldn't surprise me that you've been having a hard time trying to develop that relationship. So what I was going to say to you is, here is a great opportunity for you to get a person, a partner, and go through this process and explore that part of yourself. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? What part of you are you afraid? What would you say on that, Bill?
One of the things I noticed in actually doing men's work and then in the work in prison is gay men have a special ability to love other men. And there's just something about it where we have an ability that straight guys, and I've talked to straight guys about this, and they can see it in me, that I have a connection that they don't have. And so we can use that just natural instinct to love another man, to care for them. And then when we have the tools and the skills, all of a sudden we're a help person in a way they've never been helped before, whether they're gay or straight. And so to me, I just love the whole idea of this. What you're doing, Martin, is seeding this into the gay community, because to me, this could work wonders for the gay community. It would develop a whole foundation to the culture, and then we can bring it to the outside world, outside the gay community, and be a real powerful force in the world. So I'm really thrilled about this opportunity.
Well, thank you for saying that. That's exactly what I'm doing, my friend. That's exactly what I'm doing. Yeah. And it's fun to be doing it, and it's exciting, and that's what it's what gets me out of bed in the morning with excitement and all that kind of stuff. So Thank you for this today. And so Bill, other than we're going to put the link to your website in the replay so people can find it. Is there any other? And that's a pretty clear way to find you, because they can find you on the website, right?
Yeah. You can find me on the website. If you go to the FAQ, the frequently asked questions, there's all kinds of information, questions and answers in my biography there. And then there's a contact us, anybody who wants to contact, me or Anthony Hearn, who is also a gay man in England, who did the website and everything. He's been my partner in this. But you can contact us through there. I'd love to hear from you. And it's free. It's everything on that website is free. And you can do, if you start off the 20-day program, then you can go to the 40-day program. And then there's another 20 days on top of it that gets into pretty cool stuff. You do the, what is that, 80 days? You do the 80 days and you're going to be a different person, I guess.
I will tell you, it's almost close to that 90-day mark that most people have to go through to get out of recovery or anything. It's something about that transformational experience of 90 days.
Yeah.
So you're getting there. This is so concentrated that you're going to get a lot out of those 80 days. I am excited about what's ahead for me doing this every day, and I hope everybody else will join it as well. So Bill, thank you very, very much for joining us today and being part of this conversation and teaching. And thank you so much for your contribution and what you've given to us and the world. And I got to tell you, it tickles me to death that we're part of the gay community. We're part of that tribe, and tickles me to death. I'm so happy.
It's a cool tribe.
It's a cool tribe. And we are making a difference. And we are moving the world to a new place, living in prosperity and love. So,
and I want to add one more thing. Basil, you mentioned about your relationship to your interior feminine. What I love about this program is you get to meet your interior feminine directly. You get to talk to her, him, whatever it is for you, but it's whatever it is for you. There's no preconceived thing that you're supposed to experience. It's you get to experience what is inside of you. And so maybe what everybody else has been describing as interior feminine never registered with you. You're going to find out what it really is for you. And that's what I like about this. Everybody's experience is different. And this allows that to unfold in a beautiful way.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Bill.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And may love and prosperity prevail. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Good seeing you, Steve.